You're listening to the Mike on the Right podcast.
Hey there, and Happy New Year. You are listening to the Mike on the Right podcast, release date Monday, January 5th, 2026, episode 36. And yes, I am, as always, broadcasting from the heart of the heartland in central Indiana, the crossroads of America, the great Hoosier State. Continue to like, share, 5-star rating, subscribe. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey together. You can hear this episode and all others, whether you want to listen to them or watch the video, mikeontheright.com. As I said at the top of the intro, Happy New Year. And what a new year it has been. I was going to make this a single topic episode to start the new year after Christmas, but so much has happened in the first 5 days of the year that I feel like I can't. I feel like I've got to get to some hard news. So the three things we're going to talk about today is the new New York City Mayor, Mamdani, the socialist Democrat who has taken office, has already said some troubling things. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what that means for New York City and for America. Then we're going to talk about the tensions going on in Iran. Part of the episode previous to look at the couple of stories looking from 2025 looking into 2026 was foreign policy, and we are right there in the midst of it. There is civil unrest in Iran coming against the government and the theocracy there. And we're going to talk about that and what it, again, means for the world, what it means for the United States. And then we're going to close with, I think, probably the big topic that's on everybody's mind right now, today, brand new, is the U.S. incursion into Venezuela, an attack that occurred on Venezuela that brought its president under arrest and has brought him to the United States. And so we're going to talk about those three things here. But first, let's start at home and then we'll move abroad. Mamdani has been sworn in as mayor of New York City. If you don't know who Zohran Mamdani is, he is the first socialist Democrat to be elected mayor of New York City, and he is, in my opinion, probably the most powerful socialist Democrat to be elected. Now, I say this because he ascribes, so I want to start that on the top, right? He ascribes as a democratic socialist. That is his ideology. He is not shy about it. And in fact, in his speech, he said that under his administration, he is going to help get away from the cold individualism that has built America, and we're going to be embraced by the warmth of collectivism, which are absolute Marxist ideologies and words and phrases. And so I don't want you to think I'm coming right here immediately with, at the beginning of the year, with a partisan rant. These are things he said. Now, let me tell you something about communism and socialism and all of these different collective ideas of government. They have never worked, ever, in the history of mankind. If you're listening to the sound of my voice, put that in your head. It has never worked. And so there is no way, bringing it to the United States, bringing it to New York City, are we going to somehow do it better? And what's funny to me is like, oh, we've just never tried it the right way. What is the right way to take away all private industry, or at least certain sectors? What is the right way to completely control the aspects of everybody's life? What is the right way to bring these ideas that somehow no one can have, everyone has to be equal, except the government, of course, right? All the government people are a whole other tier, but everybody else has to be equal. It's never worked. And you're like, well, China? No, China is not in its purest form. China would not be what it is today if it didn't have the capitalistic ideals based in its economy. Now, that doesn't mean that the government still doesn't control things and own things, and it's much more. But China would not be the China it is today if it didn't give up some of that. It's like North Korea. North Korea is 100% based on that, government control of life and industry and everything, and has very, very limitedly, very, very, very limitedly delved into capitalist ideas. They have a couple of businesses and zones, but you can see the reclusiveness and the poverty it brings. And so for Mayor Mamdani to come here and say, we're going to take the tenets of democracy and we're going to put socialistic ideals in there, it doesn't work anywhere in the world. And so no, now don't get me wrong. I believe that there are parts of life that we are called to be a part of a village and to be part of community. But what really is the crux of being an American is the individual freedom that each and every one of us have, and it is not dependent on somebody else's version or idea of freedom. We are guaranteed by the Constitution the freedom of speech. They don't have that in communist and socialist countries. What are they going to start doing? Like, they're going to start doing like what's happening in the UK? The UK is supposed to be a modern parliamentary democracy, constitutional monarchy, technically. And people are getting arrested and going to jail and getting fined for what they say on the internet. And it's not like verbal threats against the prime minister. It's there are only two genders. Right? And so what is Mamdani going to do? Is he going to start bringing these things to New York City? Well, we'll see as time goes on. But one of the things that he's really talked about has been, well, we're going to bring free buses, and the government is here to help, and the era of big government is over is not real. That government is going to use all its power to make things better and more affordable for those in New York. Well, those 9 famous words, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help, that Reagan so famously talked about, that's the scariest thing to me. That somehow they think all of our solutions are government. Now, government can be part of some solutions. Government has to pave roads. Government has to provide mail. Government has to provide a common defense. There's certain things that government can do. I'm not saying it always does it the best, but there's only certain things that a government can do. But a government is not supposed to provide free bus service. First of all, nothing is free. And that's what Mayor Mamdani doesn't get. Is that someone is going to have to pay for his universal free bus system. And it's going to be a conglomeration of hiking taxes on the rich, which, by the way, several rich New Yorkers, why do you think Donald Trump left New York? It wasn't because New Yorkers hated him. It wasn't because, it was too liberal for him. It was because the amount of money that is taken from you at that level, you already are paying the vast majority of taxes in your state and in your nation by being rich. And you should. But what I'm saying is that we don't need to have, first of all, I'm a flat tax guy. I think it should be a certain percentage for everyone, whether you make $10 or $10 billion. I think you should pay a certain percentage. Everybody, just period. That is the most fair and even way. We have a progressive system that the more money you make, the more you have to pay in taxes. But then, of course, there's all these deductions and things. Now, all these Democrats will always tell you, well, the rich people just aren't paying their fair share. Well, it's the loopholes they created, that Congress and their legislatures created for their rich buddies who also give them donations. So don't sit here and tell me that somehow the rich people are really getting away with it. You let them by creating the loopholes and deductions. No more loopholes, no more deductions, flat tax. Flat amount. And that way, too, we as citizens can know what we have to pay when it comes tax return time. Or it wouldn't be a return system anymore if it was flat. Maybe there would be. Because there probably will still be child credits and all these things, but if it was flat, it would be so much better. And so somebody is going to be paying that in New York, in the state or in New York City. And I'll tell you what, the governor ain't going to help him because she's going to be locked in I don't know how tight the race in New York is going to be for governor, but there is a Nassau County executive that's going to be running for governor. So I don't think the state legislature or the governor is going to be looking to pile money on or socialist ideas on New York City in a big election year for New York. There's just no way. And so, no, Mayor Mamdani has come at a time, and it's funny, influencers make me laugh because they are they influence people, but they live in the least percent of reality just outside the uber rich or the movie stars or the Taylor Swifts of the world. Because there's these oh, Mamdani is just I can't. This is what it feels like to hope again. Mamdani is my mayor. You live in such a little percentage of it. You're gonna have to pay more. You don't think that they're gonna try to tax the gig economy more? They want taxes on everything. They're going to have to raise taxes on the rich. They're going to have to raise taxes on corporations that create businesses. They're going to have to raise taxes on the very people that you get free products from to influence other people. Like, you're not going to not be affected. Sorry, double negative. You're definitely going to be affected. And it's like, oh, I just, and I'm not sitting here to tell you that you can't have whatever political ideology that you want. You can have whatever political ideology you want. This is America. You're free to have it. But I'm going to tell you right now, nothing is free. And it is my money and your money. Well, I mean, I'm not in New York, right? But these socialist ideas that they think, him and Bernie and AOC are going to think they're just going to bring to the nation. That is why the Democratic Party is so divided today, is because they're in a tug of war. Because progressivism only wins in certain places. It's Vermont's weird. Seattle is a big major city. New York's a big major city. But I tell you what, I'm going to say it right now. Mamdani's one term. It's just like Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot was one term. Now I know they got Johnson, or whatever his name is now, and he's also progressive, but he isn't like what Lori Lightfoot is. New York's going to be more screwed up. They're going to defund police. They're going to do all these things, and they're going to make free buses, and they're just going to make things harder for those that live there. And all the rich people and the job creators and businesses are going to leave. I can't keep going on this one. I got to move on. Let's move on to something that is just as troubling and challenging. In my last episode of 2025, I talked about the foreign policy stories that are going to be shaping 2026. And we are right there with what's going on in Iran. If you have not heard, the Ayatollah, of course, who's aging, whose government was just pounded by the United States several months ago, putting their nuclear program, which, by the way, their nuclear program did take heavy hits. And now CNN, in a story that I just read just like 2 or 3 days ago, finally had to admit it. There was all these people, we're hearing reports from our people that Donald Trump is lying about the damage that happened to Iran's nuclear program. And finally now it's like, they are decades behind. But they never had to print a retraction for the crap that they talked about before. So I just want to lay that out there. Iran is got economic sanctions up the wazoo. It's already a desert wasteland in a lot of places. You've got a theocracy government that makes men are free to do whatever they want, and it's got some of the worst human rights for women across the world. And Ayatollah Khamenei, who has been in control since forever, who's pushing 90 years old, who's frail, has had to hide in a bunker because the United States was bombing the crap out of everything in Iran, several months ago. And of course, the Israelis and what's been going on with them. And Iran is in a tough place economically, foreign policy wise, militarily. And one of the biggest things is what Israel and the United States have done in just kind of this apparatus is the strength of Iran is in the proxies. It's not in the country itself. I think the country would be tough, but it would fold like a cheap suit because it's a paper tiger. Their power is in the proxies in Hezbollah and in Hamas that have now taken such heavy hits that their networks aren't operating. And so Iran is exposed, and young people, young and old, but especially younger people, millennials and their version of Gen Z and all that stuff, are rallying against the government because they don't have enough water and they don't have enough food and they have hyperinflation. And their currency is crap, and it's all coming to a head. And this Islamic socialist republic, this Islamic republic, where the government controls every aspect of your life except for the men. As long as they follow the rules, they can do whatever they want. The women, they got to cover their faces and cover everything head to toe. And if you think the wrong thing, you get whipped or killed. Can't drive. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we're seeing this kind of unraveling of that. Now, the government, of course, is bringing in its military. And again, it's a gunless society, right? Because that's what liberals and socialists think we should have, is that nobody should have guns so that you can't defend yourself against a tyrannical government, which is why we will never in the United States give that up. But you see that in Iran, there is this huge outcry by young people, a huge outcry by young people. And I'm not saying that they're not going to be Muslim. I'm not saying but there is a cry for truth. There is a cry for freedom. And one day it's going to happen. I don't know if when Khomeini dies, if there's going to be a revolution. I don't know. It's so all over the place in terms of where things are. But I will tell you this, and this is a message for my Christian friends, and I was talking about this at church today, is that Iran is one of those places, if the curtain ever falls, the same thing like North Korea and Venezuela when we talk about it and other places. When the curtain falls, when things get opened up, when Christians and Christian NGOs and nonprofit organizations can get their boots on the ground in greater measure, if the government really falls and if things shift, we as Christians got to be ready to do that, because these people need help. They need Jesus, but they need food and water and medical care. And they just need, there's so many practical needs that they're going to need because the government is inept to do so. And this is what happens when you have, Islamic, socialist, communist theocracy based on a book, the Quran, which is a flawed and evil book, governing you and your people. Now, the rich don't have to do that, right? The Khomeini don't have to do that, and those folks don't have to do that. The president of the country doesn't have to do that. And their inner circle in government, they live in palaces, and they're just the largesse, right? And everybody else is equal. They all got to be down here. The Christian organizations have to be ready to put people on the ground to help with the practical needs and the spiritual needs of Iran. Now, I don't know if that time is coming. I really don't know if that time is coming. Israel putting down the terrorist organizations that Iran supported as proxies really leaves Iran exposed. And if the people can topple the government, then man, they should. And, so I just say that as I get into the kind of the next segment. It's another piece of the puzzle when it comes to foreign policy in 2026. Be watching Iran. Because the people are close, could topple that government, and the United States and Europe and as many Christian organizations, especially as possible, need to be ready to come in. Same thing with North Korea. I always say if that ever fell, what the greatest opportunity to care for people, I guess the spiritual need, of course, but the practical need of the people is going to be important, and we can have an influence in that. As Christians, or even if you don't ascribe to my religion you're listening today, or to my political ideology and you're listening today, you can't deny the fact that these repressive regimes hurt their people, and they're crying for freedom. They need their basic needs met. The government of Iran has because of sanctions, and no one will buy their oil for the most part, and they think that they need nuclear weapons so that they can be this Islamic capital of the world, and that they can just be in control of everything. That's not going to happen under the U.S.'s watch. And if anything, President Trump has shown otherwise, that he's willing to bomb their nuclear facilities, that he's willing to go into Venezuela, that he's willing to support Israel over the proxies and wipe them out, and to shoot down their missiles coming out of Yemen and all the different things. So keep that on your radar, but there is a lot of unrest. Look it up. Read about it. Look at some of the on-the-ground stuff. I mean, I was watching a video. It was some government building, and there were these big gates, and you could just see these metal gates, and they're wobbling. I'm talking like 10 feet in either direction, back and forth, and it's because the people are tearing them down to try to get in and to get food and to stop the government from, killing people and oppressing them from basic needs and basic freedoms. It's happening, folks. We got to move on, or I'll never finish this episode. We'll have to have a second episode to finish this episode. Let's talk about Venezuela. Now, I've got several Venezuelan friends who, over the course of my life, have always talked about before Maduro, the Chavez regime, and the socialist communist government control, especially of oil, which in the same thing that can happen in Iran. It's not that these people couldn't take care of themselves if things were nationalized, or if these things were not nationalized, and if these industries were allowed to flourish, to create jobs and to create better social status and to create better wealth and more wealth to help and care for people. Venezuela's in that same spot. If the government would stop squandering it and stop being corrupt with it and stop being in bed with the Colombians and stopped supporting narcoterrorism, that Venezuela could probably be one of the richest countries in South America and could be a beacon for South and Central America to help others around them with, again, the largesse that they have. And Maduro and this I mean, everything has been just on the rocks with right? Because one of the things that's been occurring has been these drug boats that the United States has been taking out. And some people are saying, well, how do we know that they're drug boats and all these things? Well, we know what they're doing. We know what they're trying to do. And I've been fully supportive of the actions. President Nicolás Maduro has been arrested by the United States government. And the United States had a daring raid that came into the country with military assets and took out their air defense systems and took out their power and landed these helicopters in the presidential compound. And President Maduro and his wife were running to some safe room. I was reading this in the Wall Street Journal and just couldn't quite make it. And the United States got him and arrested him and brought him to New York, and they're going to indict him on narco-terrorism charges. Now, there are a couple things here that are true. Let's start with the obvious. Nicolás Maduro, on the shoulders of Hugo Chavez, is an evil, brutal, socialist dictator. He has oppressed his people. He has destroyed his economy. But he, of course, lives in the riches and the largesse, while other people suffer. He's an evil, awful man running an evil and awful government, and stole the election most recently. And here's one of the, let's talk about a couple things about that. One, we all talk about elections and whether we like the outcome or not. But in the international community, including the United States, when it's universally accepted by the good guys that an election has been stolen, I think we can certainly say that that's true. And the government election board said, oh, he just won it real tight, but Maduro won. And the opposition leader, which are the groups of folk in that government coalition, are the ones that are looking to bring more capitalist ideas and to bring more freedom to the country. They lost by narrow margin, but all of these other organizations, world organizations, private government, NGOs, nonprofits, all agree that Maduro got beat by like 30 points, but it was stolen from the people to keep the communist, socialist, dictator friends and him and his buddies in power. He is an evil man, and he needed to go. And I'll tell you what, I love when the liberal crowd gets out there, and they're protesting already, like today and yesterday. They're protesting as we speak. I can't believe that the Donald Trump went and got this guy and arrested him. It is amazing to watch millions of Venezuelans around the world, including friends of mine, millions in the country and outside, and the large population in South Florida, they're taking to the streets and celebrating. In the country, they're pulling down the man's statues. They're celebrating. Now, that doesn't mean that the way forward isn't perilous, and it's got to be done right. But it's amazing to watch the people who have been oppressed celebrating it. And the liberals of America and the squish liberals in Europe, they're taking the side of a socialist dictator. And because Orange Man bad. Therefore, anything Orange Man does is bad. And again, you cannot like Donald Trump. That's fine. If you're listening to me, I know I got several friends who listen to the show that are 100% anti-Trump. They think he should be impeached. They think he should be jailed. That's fine. I just don't agree with you, but you can have that view, and it is a valid view for you to have as an American. But you cannot for 1 second tell me that there is nothing that Donald Trump has done good in your eyes. There has to be some. I can think of several things that Biden and Obama that did well. And I'm man enough and willing enough to admit it. So you need to do the same. Now, on the flip side, should the United States be engaging in these type of military raids and arrest? Well, let's separate those into two things. One, whether the president has constitutional authority based on war powers versus congressional power when it comes to declaring war. So that's piece one. And piece two of this is whether or not it is within the power of the president to come into somebody's country and just arrest them, and whether or not that should be allowed here, right? So there's a constitutional question related to war and war acts, and then there's the question of the arrest power, right? Those are two things. Now, I believe the first part to the Constitution, there is a specific definition of declaration of war. And people like Rand Paul and people like Thomas Massie, who there are times that I'm like, yeah, you know what? I love your non-contrarian thinking. I love that you're the contrarian in this, right? I love that you're not the non-conformist thing. There are times that I think the Republican Party and the nation benefit from that. And then there are times that those two knuckleheads have got some of the dumbest lame brain ideas. And this is one of them. If you can't, in good faith, differentiate military actions versus the physical declaration of war across numerous presidents of both parties. Because listen, maybe Rand and Massie would say the same exact thing if Biden done this, but there would be a lot less liberal outcry if this had been Biden, right? Because Orange Man bad. But that's what Massie has simply come is Orange Man bad too. It's real sad because being liberty minded does not mean that we just close all the doors, isolate, stick our hands under our legs, don't go anywhere, don't move anywhere, don't care about anything else. That's hijacked liberty mindedness. The second part of this is whether the president of the United States should be taking these actions in other countries. And now part of me is, hey, yeah, this feels weird, but I would rather this happen somewhere else than the United States. We don't want repeats of Pearl Harbor, and we see that isolationism really hurts us in that regard. And the isolationist Trump people are real quiet today, which is hypocritical to me. I'm okay with military intervention for keeping this stuff off of our soil and to morally help. This isn't about being a police action. I'm against being the world's police. But when American interests are involved or when a people are severely oppressed, I think we have to step in. And Maduro has definitely been running a narcoterrorism organization, and he should be brought to justice. So we can be uncomfortable with how it happened, but still celebrate that this dictator is out of power. Both of those can be true. And I think the Thomas Massies of the world and whatever need to shut up about war, because it's not a war. This was a military action. The president has broad constitutional powers related to this, broad statutory powers, a commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Oh, and by the way, long-standing precedent. War has a specific definition. Anyway, I could go on and on about this, but we're going to continue to watch the Venezuela situation because Maduro has been taken to New York and he's going to be indicted or has been indicted on narcoterrorism charges along with others. And that's going to be a huge, huge, huge international event. But right now, the Venezuelan people are cautiously breathing freer. And this is another thing. Christian organizations need to be ready to come in and help. If the wall truly comes down, the Venezuelan people have been oppressed. We need to help them nationalize or unnationalize their oil and get their oil out there. And it isn't because of the United States. We are already having plummeting gas prices. We don't need Venezuelan oil. What we need is we do need Venezuelan oil coming to market because it will help the country stabilize, the country being Venezuela. Anyway, thank you so much for listening today. Again, MikeOnTheRight.com. This and all other episodes. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining me. Have a great week.